I think Bumblestripe might just be one of the most controversial minor characters in the Warriors books. If you like Devwing, it's really easy to hate Bumblestripe. And if you hate Devwing, it's really easy to see Bumblestripe's life as sad and use him as justification for hating Devwing. But which side is right? Well, I feel like it's perfectly reasonable to pity Bumblestripe. He spent most of his life trying to develop a relationship with his crush Devwing, just to watch it all fall apart in the end. He's just wasted so many emotions on Devwing, his life is a bit sad. But at the same time, Bumblestripe is not a victim by any means. His so-called love for Devwing is harassment, peer pressure, emotional manipulation, and well, just not how you are supposed to treat someone that you love. Bumblestripe is an absolute mess, and he took his crush way too far. Let's start from the beginning. Bumblestripe's love for Devwing doesn't start until Sign of the Moon, but Fading Echoes does build up who Bumblestripe is. After Briarlight's injury, Bumblestripe has to go through the harsh reality that he can only become a warrior with one of his two sisters. As a result, Blossomfall and Bumblestripe actually become very close. When Bumblestripe tries to open up about his sadness regarding Briarlight, Ivypaw didn't understand what he was going through, and Bumblestripe is fast to go start speaking with Blossomfall instead. At this moment, Blossomfall is the most important figure in Bumblestripe's life. She has been in the same position as him throughout his entire life, so he shares all of his deepest feelings with her. Honestly, it's amazing that he can be so close to his sister. Moving on to Sign of the Moon, in Chapter 2, after Devwing saves Ice Cloud by climbing into a hole, Bumblestripe says, "Wow, that was brave," and gives Devwing an admiring glance. It's game on. Bumblestripe has a crush. It's very important to mention that this is after Devwing has already had meetings with Tigerheart and has shown genuine affection towards him. Quote, their moonlight meetings have been more important to her than anything else. In addition, Tigerheart has also already betrayed Devwing while Bumblestripe was still warming up to her. Tigerheart told ShadowClan about Jayfeather's secret stash of plants. So, those two have already been through highs and lows, while Bumblestripe is still just lightly flirting. He's a bit late if you ask me. Anyways, Bumblestripe goes forward with doing his best to be nice with Devwing. They sit together at the gathering and chatter, and then comes their first real moment. Grasspelt of RiverClan tries to ask Bumblestripe what happened to Briarlight, as no clan other than ThunderClan knows at the moment. And Devwing steps in and turns him away before Bumblestripe has to explain. Then, Devwing actually has some solid words of comfort for Bumblestripe. Devwing is probably the second cat to feel for Bumblestripe's loss, right after Blossomfall. The problem? Well, Devwing was still madly in love with Tigerheart. As I said, Bumblestripe is too late to have a chance at winning over Devwing. But that does not stop him from trying. After the gathering, Bumblestripe walks beside Devwing a bit closer than usual. Devwing is immediately weirded out and quickens her pace to get away from him. Directly after that, Blossomfall lets Devwing know that she has stolen Bumblestripe's heart. Now, I'm going to assume that Blossomfall wasn't watching Devwing this whole time. No. We've seen before with Briarlight, Bumblestripe talks with Blossomfall about his feelings. Bumblestripe probably told her about his crush, and she wants to be a good sister and let Devwing know to increase the chances of something getting started. At this point, none of those three cats are in the wrong. Bumblestripe has a crush, Devwing's not interested, and neither Bumblestripe nor Blossomfall are aware of this yet. That's all we get of their relationship in this book. However, there is a shift in Bumblestripe's emotional status that is huge. Blossomfall starts receiving training from the Dark Forest. I believe that this might have actually caused a divergence in their once close relationship, similar to how Devwing lost her trust with Ivypool. So, to compensate with this, Bumblestripe has to look to his other relationships. We have Briarlight, but she is confined to camp. Bumblestripe tries to spend time with Briarlight by taking her out of camp, but that ends in disaster. Without either of his sisters, Bumblestripe needs another source of support, and he chooses Dovewing. In The Forgotten Warrior, Bumblestripe's desire for the dove only escalates further. Okay, this is where we get into the bad stuff. Bumblestripe is a bit disgusting. First up, we find out that Bumblestripe decided to sleep with Dovewing and Ivypool in the apprentice's den for a few nights because apparently there was a leak in the warrior's den that only affected him. His words, not mine. This is just way too convenient for me to believe. Bumblestripe is making things up so he can sleep with Dovewing. Next, Whitewing talks to Bumblestripe and then delivers the message to Dovewing that Bumblestripe likes her. So now Bumblestripe is using Dovewing's mom as leverage to get them closer. What's going on? Then Dovewing kindly rejects an offer from Bumblestripe to go on a walk, and Cinderheart suddenly shows up and practically forces Dovewing to change her mind. It's just really strange that out of nowhere Cinderheart is completely ready to pressure Dovewing in this way. This is just pure speculation, but I think that Bumblestripe deliberately requested that Cinderheart back him up in case Dovewing rejected him. Due to her respect for the older warrior, Dovewing couldn't say no. Anyways, Bumblestripe's little plan doesn't change Dovewing's feelings, but the walk goes well enough for Bumblestripe to believe that he did. Dovewing is just in such a bad position. She has all these cats putting pressure on her to be with a cat she was never interested in. Bumblestripe is actively complimenting all of Dovewing's accomplishments, and he follows her around everywhere. He's really coming on too strong at this point. He even makes the terrible mistake of choosing Dovewing over Blossomfall as his training partner, when Blossomfall clearly wanted to be with him and Dovewing was clearly uncomfortable. Dovewing says it's fine if Bumblestripe wants to switch, but Bumblestripe assures Dovewing that Blossomfall doesn't care, even though Blossomfall obviously cares. Bumblestripe didn't want to give up an opportunity to touch Dovewing. Not only is this starting to become borderline harassment, Bumblestripe is deliberately damaging his most important relationship of all for his crush. Blossomfall and Bumblestripe clearly have some sort of issues that need to be worked out, possibly due to Blossomfall training in the Dark Forest. And Bumblestripe is still choosing Dovewing over her. Terrible. Well, anyways, Bumblestripe's twisted plans actually do succeed. Dovewing starts to consider him, and it's no surprise thanks to the peer pressure from all sides. Anyways, their relationship gets shaky in The Last Hope. They get in some arguments and apologize. Dovewing gets upset that Bumblestripe is too close, and Rosepetal joins in on peer pressure and yells at Dovewing to pay more attention to him. Bumblestripe gets upset that Dovewing doesn't care. Bumblestripe finds Dovewing talking to Tigerheart. But the book ends with the two happily together after they fight side by side in the great battle. It seems almost as if Dovewing has chosen Bumblestripe. Dovewing does seem content with Bumblestripe in her novella, but starting in Bramblestar Storm and moving forward, she finally escapes his grasp. But Bumblestripe, well, he never gives up on his dream, and he manages to confess his feelings for Dovewing at the least sensitive time possible, while the cats are mourning over the death of Purdy. This is just on a whole other level. Bumblestripe is genuinely selfish and relatively emotionless in this situation. Bumblestripe is well aware by this point that Dovewing lacks interest, and he still tells her that he wants kids. Dovewing can't take it anymore, so she gets together with Tigerheart and never considers Bumblestripe again. Bumblestripe is absolutely devastated. but in the end, he did it to himself. Love is not a game that you try to play and manipulate. Bumblestripe used any excuse he could to spend time with Devwing, and he convinced several of the cats in ThunderClan to get on his side and fight for him. He also jeopardized the massively important relationship with his sister in the name of love. He disrespected the dead for his sick and twisted plan. Let this be a lesson for all the Bumblestripes out there. Love is a force that requires pull from both sides to be functional. And sometimes, that's not possible. No matter how much you try to manipulate and force a relationship, it's not always meant to be. Listening to your head is just as important as listening to your heart. And finally, it's perfectly fine to just be friends. If you can find a way to be friends with your crush, that's amazing. You get to spend time with the person you love. Don't get selfish and ruin that. Anyways, there's one more thing I need to talk about before I end this video, and that is what happens to Bumblestripe in the final book of A Vision of Shadows, The Raging Storm. So, very minor spoiler alert if you haven't read it yet. Honestly, if you don't care about Bumblestripe as much as I do, you could read past this part of the book without even thinking about it. Anyways, when we see Bumblestripe in this book, there are two notable things. One, he is visibly angry at Devwing, and two, he has grown closer to Cherryfall. I feel the writing team has realized how depressing Bumblestripe's love life was, and they decided to give it a happy ending. Bumblestripe is sort of going through grief over finally coming to terms with the fact that Devwing will never be his mate. Right now, he is in the anger phase, and he is moving towards acceptance that involves Cherryfall probably being his new mate. I'll admit that it's a random pairing, but I'm actually really happy that it happened. The last thing I want is Bumblestripe becoming the next Ashfur. It's hard to say if Bumblestripe will be a better cat after he gets over Devwing, but I'm sure he will be happy with Cherryfall, and he probably won't be causing any more trouble. And that's enough for me. Even with all of his terrible flaws, Bumblestripe remains one of my favorite cats in this series. He represents the struggle of wanting something so bad that remains forever out of reach, and coming to terms with that. I think we all have a little Bumblestripe in us.
Why are we wasting our time? You need to get back on your paws. We cannot wait for a sign with such an important cause. Why